Right. Yeah, it is the experience, and it's about what the name conjures up in your mind because of their branding efforts, conjure up a vision in my mind and an expectation that I would expect from that brand. And I
Welcome to
think,
Unstoppable Podcast with Harry Sardinas, inspiring conversations with influential millionaires, investors, thought leaders, entrepreneurs who are making a massive difference with their innovative products and services, and sharing the challenges and wisdom of how they sold their first million.
We're talking about this market segment, which is what most of us we are, which is okay. We have 20% that buy cheap, buy on price. There is nothing we can do with them because the product is not important for them, and they will always buy the cheapest. Yeah. Okay, but now we have the other 80%. This 80%, they are not looking for the cheapest product, probably because they cannot afford. Sometimes they're not looking for the more expensive. They are looking in what we call it the most value for the money. I know that because my girlfriend, when she go and buy dresses in Oxford Street, yeah, I go with her, yes. I don't like to go inside the stores. So what I do instead is I watch her buying behavior, yeah. So then she goes in one shop, she look at dress, she look the price, she touches it, goes around. Okay, let's go to the next one. There we go to the next one. And I'm observing her. She goes again, touch one dress, touch another dress, see the price. And then 5, 6, 7, 8 stores. And then she come back and she pick a dress. And I'm thinking, okay, uh, she didn't pick the cheapest one. She didn't pick, sometimes pick the most expensive, sometimes no. So actually the price is no an issue for the dress. So why is she buying this one? So she's buying because it's the most value for the money that she's paying. Yeah. And she's able to analyze as a consumer what is the most value for. Sometimes it's a dress that can be in an offer, or sometimes it's just the best value that she saw for. Probably, let me give you an idea, is sometimes it's a dress that can cost you £100, but it looks like a £500 dress.
Mhm.
Are you with me? And then there you go. The consumers see a high perceived value at a low cost to them, bang, and they buy. So how, Angelo, can you describe what are the techniques or the secret that entrepreneurs should be doing there to unleash this what we call a high perceived value for the consumer? Obviously, it have to be a low cost to you because otherwise it's not profitable. Like, yeah. So what are the secrets behind?
Well, I think that, when anytime I'm working with a company that's getting ready to launch a product, for example, we do a lot of research, a lot of competitive research. Who am I going to target? Which competitor am I think I'm going to compete against, right? We do some shopping, if you will, to look at and we'll pick apparel. I work in the apparel industry, right? We go in, we touch, we feel, we think about quality, everything you were just saying, right? What feels cheap, it's, $30 for a t-shirt. It feels like it's a $5 t-shirt. And so we want to understand that perception. We talk to people, talk to the store owners. The other side is understanding and talking to consumers as well, and trying to get a feel for what perceptions based on the brand, then ultimately how we want to position. And I think, have you ever seen the movie Field of Dreams, right? I use it, the Field of Dreams syndrome. Don't build it because they just won't come. They don't know your brand. And that's circle back to the beginning of this conversation. If I'm going to spend $100 on a shirt and I have no idea who the brand is, never heard of them before, I'm a little hesitant. Now I'm doing a lot of touchy feely, asking my wife, how does it look? She'll give her opinions, and I might make a decision to try that brand. Or she's there saying, hey, I've heard of Marc Jacobs, that's a great brand. Let's go find them. Let's go find Calvin Klein, right? Because those have been ingrained as quality products. Do they make, sometimes I got one of their shirts, I'm going, this doesn't feel really good, right? So maybe they went cheap on the materials and things like that. So it's you can't call yourself a high-end brand and you're using cheap materials. It comes out in the wash. And nowadays, you know, if you're unhappy, used to maybe write a letter to the company. Right now, you just go online and
Oh, right
you tell
now you're
you tell the whole world.
unhappy. Right now you're unhappy. You're in the companies are in trouble because you do have a voice with the social media and the
Yeah.
reviews and the yeah. The other day the the they didn't treat me well in a restaurant. Yeah, and we leave a review which it was no bad, like half halfway. Wow, and then we got to respond the next day. I'm really sorry. We're really sorry. What happened? Please come back again. Very quickly they recovered. So yeah, today and the consumer are getting very savvy now. The
Yeah.
consumers are not like before. Like, well, you pay and so those days that we can take advantage of the consumer that gone. they they are very savvy and they do have a voice, and we have to be consistent with the brand that we build. So the pricing, Angelo, is something strategic because it have to be in line with your brand, with your story, with the quality of your product, with what you represent. And if one of these elements are weak, then that disalignment can create the discomfort of your client. However, if you, and this is where it comes, because the people, we always, the entrepreneurs always leave branding for the last thing, right? Number
Mhm.
one, because it's something that they cannot measure. They say, well, I'm paying for this, but really, how much, how much money I'm making out of this. It's difficult to calculate, yeah. But in the ballpark, in the ballpark, can you imagine if you can elevate the price of your product 5%, 10%, 15%, just because you have now in line all these elements that we describe. How much money really we talking about, Angelo? We're talking about a lot of money, right?
Correct. Well, there are a couple points. It's as you were describing, right? You have your product and your pricing and there's two elements there. It's number one, when you're thinking about your brand, it takes time to build a brand. You can't walk out today and I'm XYZ, and therefore nobody knows who you are. Nobody knows what your brand stands for. And so there's all those other elements. But there's two things, right? There's consistency in your message, in your positioning. If you're wishy-washy and you're changing who you are and jumping around. So there's consistency or lack thereof. But you said it. We talked about brand. It's about your story. So what's the story that your company represents, your company tells? It isn't just like I make shirts. That's not a brand. That's just a product. But how do you craft that brand into a story that people can relate to, they can understand?
Mhm.
Hey, I've been in the fashion industry for 50 years and now I'm a designer and I'm launching a new brand and you start making associations of things that you've done and all of a sudden they go, hey, he's been around a long time, he's a top designer and now I want to look for his label. So there is a story, there is a path, and I always tell companies, especially in small companies that are launching and entrepreneurs, is you got to do your research. You have to understand your customers. You have to look at your competitors. And when you launch, you need to stay consistent. You need to constantly reinforce who you are and don't get schizophrenic about it and change it constantly. Most companies, especially in the beginning, they get tired of their story, their message, their marketing too quickly because they see it every day. Consumer doesn't see it every day. And so you've got to let it build. It's like using SEO. I was working with a company one time and they go, yeah, we tried SEO for a month and it just didn't work. And I go, well, I
A
could have told you
month.
it wasn't good. Yeah, I could have told you it wasn't going to work, right? It takes time to
Take like
build and
6 months, this thing to.
yeah, exactly. And so the realistic and what it's going to take and understanding, your cost and all that stuff. But the story is really important. The story is really important.
100%. The story, that story is what it holds the brand. And the
Mhm.
more creative you are in this story, just what you share, that Nike, it will define what business are you really in, right? Sorry.
Listen.
It was the same like Harley Davidson, the motorcycle company.
Yep.
They were about to collapse at some point, right? Because there are more better motorcycles, the Japanese, they're more faster, they're this, that. So they were losing a lot of market share in the motorcycle industry. However, um, they they work on the brand, okay, and now they are not in the motorcycle business. They are in the lifestyle that the community that ride those bikes stand for, right? The rock and roll, the wear the leather jackets, the and when you build that in that way, right? Then you cannot go out of business. There's no way you can go out of business because you have a community that identify with your product and your
Mhm.
service. Some of the companies have created brands so strong that now sometimes you don't say I'm gonna get a taxi anymore. You said I'm gonna get an Uber, and it's and then you start to think, well, Uber. Yeah, we all know about Uber or Airbnb, but those companies at the beginning they need to have a strong brand story, in the same like Amazon, right? Amazon, when you find Amazon, probably you don't even remember, but for sure it was one friend that told you, "Wow, you should buy in this store. It's amazing. If the product is wrong, they send it back completely and they give you back the money and things like that, right?" So sometimes it's not even the name; it's what it represents and the quality of that service and the quality of this customer experience. What is stick with the minds of the consumer, correct?
But that's all part of the brand, right? It's
Exactly.
it's
It's
it
that
isn't
people
just a
people
name.
think,
Yeah.
Angelo, that brand is just the logo, and that's why they don't take it seriously, and they don't realize that the brand is start from the logo, from that customer experience, for what that company represent. That the name is just the last thing that the consumer is gonna look at. It's just the whole experience, correct?
Right. Yeah. It is the experience, and it's about what the name conjures up in your mind, right? If I say Nike, I have a vision of Nike. If I say Adidas, or if I say Mercedes-Benz, or I say Toyota, those, because of their branding efforts, conjure up a vision in my mind and an expectation that I would expect from that brand. And I think there's a question that I like to ask, and you indicated it and it triggered me, is what business are you in? Right? As I said earlier, Nike's not in the shoe business, they're in the business of
100%.
inspiring the athletes, right? The CEO of
Hailey
Black and
Davidson is not in the
yeah,
business of motorcycle. They are in the business.
yeah, exactly. The CEO of Black and Decker once said, people don't go to a hardware store because they need a drill, they go because they need a hole in the wall. And so you have to really step back and, what business are you in? And I ask this question all the time of prospects and clients, and most of the time they give me what they make,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
not the problem that they're
It's
solving.
a very
And
difficult question to ask
it's an
if you don't
extremely
have
difficult
clarity.
question. It's just extremely difficult that, and I always challenge people to think about it. I'm not in the marketing business. I'm in the business of helping companies be successful or grow, right? So how they get there may not have anything to do with marketing. It may not have anything to do I'm more strategic in my approaches. I don't really focus a lot on tactical. That's a byproduct of all the other work, research and understanding your customers, your prospects. And so I'm in the business of, elevating brands using information. And so companies have to think back to where are they? What do we want to do? And especially now, if you're niching, you're in the apparel business and your brand is known for, whatever, 50 plus. Now all of a sudden you decide to get in the teen business. That might not translate. So now do you do that, or do you create another separate brand that becomes more relevant to that market segment? And it is about segmentation as well as where you fit in this kind of scheme of things.
Follow us for more interviews with world's most influential, audacious entrepreneurs that overcame challenges and adversity, providing you with the blueprint of how they sold their first million so you can grow your business exponentially.